Hey VC, this is Marty in Oregon. I am here today to do the Fluffy Records vinyl tag 2025, so coined the People's Tag. Brian's a great guy, I consider him a friend, so I'm really happy to do this, and I think it'll be fun. As many of you know, I collect albums released in 1974, so all of these albums, except for one, which you'll see, were released in 1974. So number one, the first record spun to start the year off. The first record I spun was actually Amandul 2 Hijack, and this is a German progressive rock band formed in '68. The members were part of an art commune, kind of politically active, very idealistic or whatever, but they kind of formed in retaliation or in contempt of the lingering Nazi movement. I don't know a whole lot about them, but it's a pretty interesting album. But that's the first one that I listened to this year. Okay, number two, an album originally released in a year that ends with 5. So 5 is not 74, but the next year, 1975, one of my favorite albums was released, and it was by 10cc called The Original Soundtrack. 10cc, I think, it's just my take kind of, that they were kind of maybe what the Beatles would have been like if they would have kept making records. And this album is kind of like, I kind of see it as a 70s kind of spin on Sgt. Pepper. It starts off with One Night in Paris. It's kind of a 7 or 8 minute, not a rock opera, but something like it. It's very interesting. They're very lighthearted, melodic. All 4 members were multi-instrumentalists, and surprisingly they recorded this at their studio, which was called Strawberry Studios, which is interesting. But this has their most famous song of all time, which is I Am Not in Love, which is an amazingly beautiful song. I think, if I remember correctly, they layered the vocals like 60 times over and over, and it produced an incredible sound. If you know the song, you'll know what I'm talking about. The other hit on this was Life is a Minestrone, which is kind of a really fun song. But this album cover was done by the design group Hypnosis. This is one of they did all of 10cc's albums. Really cool design. Okay, an album that I played nonstop this year. I looked on Spotify. Since I'm in the truck, I don't spin records when I'm in the truck, obviously, so I stream a lot of the records that I have. And the one that was in my top 5 streamed this year was Procol Harum's Exotic Birds and Fruit. And this is a fantastic album. Of course, Gary Brooker is the lead singer, and the band wanted to do something. Their first couple albums were with an orchestra, and which are like the Whiter Shade of Pale and stuff like that, and it was very expansive. And this is more of a straight up kind of rock and roll album. It starts off with a guy saying, "Is it on, Tommy?" And then it just hits really hard, and the whole album is full of great piano and Hammond organ sounds. Really good album, I'd say. Check it out. It's got a little 50 cent written on there, a garage sale find. Let's see. The 25th album on Discogs, or the 25th album counted in your shelf. I don't have all my albums labeled or cataloged in Discogs yet. I'm working on it, but not yet. But the 25th album I pulled out was this Albert Hammond self-titled album. So Albert Hammond was a songwriter, and he wrote songs for like dozens and dozens of people, like Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Leo Sayer, Willie Nelson, Hart, the Hollies. He actually wrote the song The Air That I Breathe, that was big for the Hollies. And some of you, I'm sure, know his son, who is Albert Hammond Jr. Is he the guitarist for the Strokes? But this is a really kind of a singer-songwriter album. This is the American version of the cover. The UK version was a little bit different than this one. Great album. Favorite release of 2024. So albums released in 24 are not from 74, but there is an exception. This album is a Cat Stevens. It's a live recording from Japan that was released on an album in 74 in Japan. It's called Saturnite, and just this year they released this copy in the United States. And it's a great album. It's got lots of his hits on it. And it comes with a really cool splatter vinyl. So this is kind of cool. So this is about I guess it'd be the only album that I can include as a release from this year, but it truly is. So cool. Number 6, a purple and gold album in honor or to recognize the Lakers. Well, I'm in Oregon, and I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan, and we don't like the Lakers very much. So I couldn't give you a purple and gold album. So I had to go with a black and red album to signify the Portland Trailblazers. This is Dave Fatman Williams, and he's a staple in the New Orleans jazz movement. He started playing piano when he was like, I think 5 years old, and him and his wife had, I think, 9 kids, and he raised them all on the music he played. And this is really neat. Kind of it's distinctly, when you listen to it, it's distinctly New Orleans jazz. And the big hit, of course, is I Ate Up the Apple Tree. But this is a great New Orleans jazz album. Okay, number 7, a live album from California. Well, I had to go with this one from '74, and everybody knows about it. It's Bob Dylan and the band Before the Flood. So this was recorded at the Great Western Forum, and which is down in Inglewood, where the Lakers used to play, ironically enough. And it's got all the great hits by the band and by Bob Dylan. It's a 2-disc set, and they both, of course, the band is the backing band for Bob Dylan, and they both share duties going back and forth on their songs. So this is a kind of a staple, I think, in a lot of collections. A lot of people have this, and Dylan's really this is when his voice is really it's pretty fun to listen to. But the band is fantastic. Okay, an album with smoking on the cover. Well, you can imagine in 1974 smoking was quite common, and I do have several albums with smoking on the cover. In fact, so I've got some honorary titles here, some honorable mentions. Here's Badfinger with the cigarette. I have this Tex Ritter album here. He's smoking a pipe. That's pretty cool. This is a fun album. You see him on the back kicking back. Very cool. And here's a unique one. Here's Jerry Lee Lewis, and he's behind the wheel of a big rig, got a cigar in his mouth. This album has the cool song, The Alcohol of Fame, which is kind of funny, really fun. But the one I chose for smoking on the cover is Gordon Lightfoot, Sundown. You can see he's got a little cigarette there. But this was the height of his power, or his popularity, so to speak. He's a Canadian singer-songwriter, and a lot of people think he's the greatest Canadian songwriter of all time. So the big one on this is Sundown, and it starts with a very recognizable 12-string guitar, and then the bass comes in, and it's a beautiful album to listen to. I really like this album a lot. Okay, a black and white album, or an album with black and white photo or picture on the front. This is If. This is not just another bunch of pretty faces. So this was, I think, the 7th album by If, and they're a British kind of jazz rock band, and they didn't have a lot of hits, and I think they were only around for, I don't know, less than 6 years. But what they did do is they were an opening act for a lot of really huge bands like Rush, Kiss, the Eagles, ELO, Black Sabbath, Frank Zappa, and a whole bunch more. And this album is really funky. It's a 7-piece. There's only 5 guys in the front, but I think there's more guys in the band. But there's horns and a little bit of a Chicago, but yet progressive. It's a good album. A lot of people don't know about this, so check it out. Okay, an artist you've recently revisited. Well, vis-a-vis Fluffy, who really kind of got his passion for record collecting off the ground with his love of Frank Sinatra and I Did It My Way. I have this Frank Sinatra album here from '74. It's some nice things I've missed, and this is an album full of covers that he did. and they're really good. It starts off with "You Turn My World Around," which is really good, but then he does Neil Diamond's "Sweet Caroline," and I actually think it's a better version than "Sweet Caroline." I mean, than Neil Diamond does himself. It's got a great version of "Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree," which my dad sang to me when I was a kid. It's got "If," and it ends with "Bad Bad Leroy Brown." So this is a really fun album. I really like listening to this. Okay, a record that another VC person put you onto. So this record, a lot of VC people have put me onto this, and specifically, I was riding after lunch. I was riding in a car with Mazzy, and I think he was in the back seat, and he was on his phone, and he was looking up albums from 1974. And he said, "Do you have Graham Parsons, Grievous Angel," and some others? And then he said, "Do you have Gene Clark, No Other?" And I didn't have it yet, and I had streamed it and really liked it. But soon after that, I found Gene Clark's No Other. And it's on, I think, maybe 70% of people, their top 10 list of albums from 74. It's really good. He was one of the founding members of the Byrds. And on his success from the Byrds, David Geffen signed him to Geffen Records, and they gave him a ton of money to make this album. And I think it cost at the time like $100,000, and it wasn't really critically acclaimed, and certainly not commercially successful at the time. And David Geffen kind of panned it a little bit. He didn't like it a whole lot. But since then, it's kind of become a cult classic. The title track, No Other, is really, really good. So check out No Other. Okay, on number 12, an album you have a hot take on. An album that, there are those albums that you see all the time in thrift stores constantly. And one of the bands you see are America. And I think a lot of people pass them over there. They're like $2 records, $3 records and stuff like that. But one of their albums, and I think it's their 4th or 5th album, I'm not sure, but is Holiday. It was they had 3 albums that started with H. And this one was the first of, I think, 5 or 6 albums that George Martin produced. And it is really, really good. It's got the mix and the sound is really good. It's got a really heavy bass line, orchestration, and then of course America is known for their harmonies. It can be real expansive and it can be really stripped down, but this is a great album. I actually stream this a lot while I'm driving. So America, Holiday. Let's see. The second album was The Best. Okay. In 74, I think his first name is Isao Tomita. Tomita, not Tomatia. Tomita released Snowflakes Are Dancing. And this is his arrangement of Debussy's music. It's the tone paintings of Debussy. And it's all performed on a Moog synthesizer and Mellotron. And if some of you remember the first Moog synthesizers, there was a huge panel. There was the keyboard and then a huge panel of switches and plugs. So you'd have all these wires with these phono plugs coming out, and you'd switch them and turn knobs to get the different sounds. And this is kind of spacey and ethereal, but absolutely beautiful. And it was nominated for 4 Grammys in the year it came out, or the year after it came out. And I believe it was the #1 selling classical album, even though it's not traditionally sounding classical music. You can definitely hear the Debussy in the music, and it's something else. He's got a huge catalog, and I don't know much about it, but this is often considered his masterpiece, or the one people know the most. So, pretty cool. VC shout out. Okay, so I'll give a shout out to a channel over in the UK called Vinyl Hunters, and I really enjoy their videos. It's a young man named Jake, and he goes around to record stores with his grandpa called Papa Dave, and kind of their tagline is "What are you looking for?" And he's done some interviews and always shows neat stuff. He's real big into progressive and to Vertigo swirls and stuff like that. So check out Vinyl Hunters. And then another toss-in would be another new channel that I really like. His name is Bobby Gaylor. And I think he has a background in the music industry. He's a wealth of knowledge about music, and he does some themed videos. He did a great one for Halloween, and I think he did a soundtrack one and some others. He's got a great voice and a great personality, and I really like, I never miss one of his videos. They're very good. Okay, an album that starts with F. Well, nothing is more F than John Cale's Fear. And it's kind of it's John Cale. A lot of you know he's a founding member of the Velvet Underground, and it's kind of hard to describe this album. It's not easy to like right off the bat. It's very minimalistic. It's kind of unsettling, but it's very original. And I after about 5 times of listening to this, I kind of started to fall in love with it, and now it's definitely in my top 10 of albums, maybe even in my top 5 of albums from 1974. It's fantastic. Starts off with Fear is a Man's Best Friend, and it can give, there's some jump scares kind of in it a little bit, and it's discordant and melodic at the same time. But and he's got a really interesting voice. But check out Fear by John Cale. Very, very good album. Okay, an album with a smile on the cover. All right, Joe Vitale, Roller Coaster Weekend. This album is so much fun. It's so great. So this is his first solo album. He's a multi-instrumentalist and mainly a drummer. He went on tour with Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and the Eagles as a drummer, and he's worked for a lot of different musicians. He was at Kent State University in 1970 when the student protests and the shooting happened. I think that influenced him a little bit. And he also went to Kent State with Joe Walsh, and subsequently they became really good friends and formed the band Barnstorm, or is it Barnstormer, something like that. But this album, it features Joe Walsh on some guitars, and really cool is it also has Phil Keaggy. Some of you will know who Phil Keaggy is. So this is kind of cool. He's on a roller coaster. Obviously, he's smiling. Incredible drummer, and his vocals sound like Joe Walsh. There's a lot of similarities between them, and it's really good. Stream this if you get a chance. I think this is kind of cool. He's wearing an ELO Tarkus tank top. So this album would have been a couple years old at the time when it came out. But this is a really cool album. I really like it. I didn't know anything about it when I picked it up. Saw it was a 74, and when I played it and then learned about him, it was very fascinating. Okay, a musician featured in a movie. Okay, honorable mention. Wayne Newton. This is a promo of the best of Wayne Newton, and it's a live album, and strangely enough, it sounds like he's rushing through all the songs on it. It's good. It's fun to listen to, but it's nothing special. But his part in Vegas Vacation, where he kind of falls head over heels for Beverly D'Angelo, her character, and tries to steal her away from Chevy Chase, is really good. And it always makes me chuckle when I see this album and think about that. But the one I chose for this is Cher, Dark Lady. Of course, you know she's been in lots of different movies, like Mask and Moonstruck and Mermaids, 3M titles, and of course a ton of others. This I think was the last album that she promoted on the Sonny and Cher show, her solo album, and she divorced Sonny soon after this or right before this album came out. But it's just a typical Cher album. It's good. It's got it's a little bit heavy at times, which is kind of cool, but it's got that unique Cher voice. And one thing that's kind of cool, this photo was taken by Richard Avedon, which I think is kind of neat. Okay, an album with a cool gatefold. All right. Ohio Players. Check this out. This is really cool. neat. So Ohio Players, you know, kind of a soul funk band, and this was their kind of I don't know, this isn't, they had several albums before this, but this was kind of like their commercial breakthrough. And kind of see that, the band members there. It's very cool. And it has 3 tracks to each side, and they're kind of extended jam funk coolness. It's unique, and this has the hit Jive Turkey on it. So this is a fun listen. All right, record that gets me pumped up. Boy, this was a little bit tougher because I have so many records that that get me pumped up. Like Deep Purple has a couple. I even have been liking the Kiss self-titled, their first album, which has been really cool. But the one I chose is Steppenwolf, Slow Flux. So a lot of you know Steppenwolf for their hits, Magic Carpet Ride and Born to Be Wild. And the Steppenwolf had many different iterations over the years. And this, they broke up before this in the late 60s, and they broke up before this. And then John Kay, who has that signature voice that you all know, he is essentially Steppenwolf. There were the other guys on they had some other founding members that stayed and came and went along the way, but he had disputes with record companies and arguments with band members and stuff like that. But this is a great album. It's just a typical Steppenwolf sound that that is fun to listen to riding a motorcycle when you got it in the helmet going through curves. So it's a great album. Okay, number 20, an album you wish you could experience for the first time again. So this was another difficult one to come up with, but I chose Second Chapter of Acts. This is their debut album. It's called With Footnotes. These are 3 siblings. It's Annie and Nellie and Matthew Ward, and they were part of the Jesus movement in the early 70s, and they came up in the beginning of that movement, and were kind of discovered by Barry McGuire, who had just recently become a Christian, and kind of promoted them. And when they were young, Nellie, this is Nellie, she was married, and their parents died within a couple years of each other. And Matthew and Annie went to live with Nellie, and she took care of them. But they sang since they were little kids, and they eventually kind of progressed through into the Christian contemporary scene. And the song on here that I wish I could experience for the first time. Now it was probably around 1980 when I first heard this, so I was about 6 years old. And the song on here that Nellie wrote is called Easter Song. And man, I get goosebumps just even thinking about it now. Rachel will know what I'm talking about with this song. It was covered by other artists, including Keith Green, but the song itself is just it's considered one of the greatest Christian songs of all time. And interestingly enough, the opening piano at the beginning was played by Michael Omardian, which he produced a lot of albums, but did work with Steely Dan, and he also produced Christopher Cross's albums that had Sailing on it and stuff like that, his big hits. So I still get those great feelings when I listen to this album again. Very cool. Okay, so that's 20, but there were some bonus prompts that I'll go through really quick here. Show a single. Here's one from 1974, and this is Carl Douglas's Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting, which some people don't know, but it came out in 1974. The album I have the album as well, and it's pretty cool. Fun to listen to. My favorite reissue of 2024 is Phases and Stages by Willie Nelson. So this was a record store re-release of his 74 album. And what this includes is, so the initial recording was recorded at Muscle Shoals. I think Jerry Wexler was the producer. And And a couple months after it was recorded, Willie decided that he would record it in his family studio. And so the second disc on this has that alternate version of the album. And it's, I don't, it's good. I don't like it quite as much as the initial one, but it's neat to compare the two and to see the differences in production. So this is a fantastic album. An album or musician you wish you'd like to see in a movie. I chose Charlie Pride. I would love to see a biopic. I was thinking about the recent Bob Dylan movie, and thought, it would be really cool to have a Charlie Pride. Not a lot of fuss has been made over him. This is, you see his albums all the time in thrift stores. He sold a jillion of them. In fact, over 50 of his songs made it in the top 10. And his big one was "Kiss an Angel in the Morning." I think that's how it goes. He actually outsold Elvis and John Denver for who is I think it's RCA. I think that's who. Yeah, RCA who recorded. But from like 69 to 75, he outsold them. Just an incredible amount of volume sales, and they're always really good. He started singing gospel music a little while later, but he actually, before he was a musician, he played baseball in the Negro Leagues, and had a semi-successful minor league career, and then he got drafted in the 50s and played for, I think he was in Colorado, and he played for the team at the base he was at, and they ended up winning the Armed Forces baseball championship or something like that. But I don't know. I think it would be really cool if somebody did a Charlie Pride movie biopic, I guess they say. So that would be neat. Record a friend gifted you. So this year, my daughter-in-law Amanda gave me this, and you probably can't see it, but it's it's backwards. Have I been showing these all backwards? I have. Well, I'm not going to start over now. So this says, "Happy 50th, 2024, Amanda." I turned 50 this year. This is a library record, actually, and it's from the Kirkwood Public Library. But she found this for me and passed it along, and I cherish it dearly. And then the last one, record featuring spoken word track. Well, there's, it would be hard to find a spoken word track that would be more famous or bigger or have a greater influence than, I just noticing it's backwards, than Gil Scott-Heron's "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." So this is considered to be part of the roots of rap music. It's funky, it's bluesy, it's got soul, R&B. It's full of jazz flute and great percussion with sick bass lines. And anyway, this is a compilation album from '74 that is his poetry is really cool, and you can kind of relate it to the political times in the late '60s, early '70s, and what was going on. So. Anyway, that's my fluffy vinyl tag of 2025, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you around the bend. Thank you.